Does your Miku sound like this? Then you, my friend, you suck at tuning. And I'm here to help you with that. But first, a word from our sponsor. I don't have one. Before I really go on into tuning, I need to talk a little bit with you about tuning styles. Specifically, finding your own tuning style. Because it is a passive process. It takes time. You discover it and you develop it as you go. So at the end of the day, you do what you believe sounds good to you. It's not a given that you will develop a style right from the get-go. It's more likely that you will approach in one way a style and then gradually you start to shift to something else because, and there's no because. But just be chill about it. You will have eventually developed it to a point where it's instantly recognizable. I think the best way to discover or develop your own tuning style is to cover a bunch of different genres. This allows you to challenge yourself instead of doing the same tuning tricks that you always are comfortable with in every cover that you make. You don't have to love the song that you're trying to cover because at the end of the day, you could love a song and then it will be too difficult to tune or start with tuning. Also, when you have developed a style enough, you will find that it's more fun to tune than to choose the song that you like because it's not about the song choice, it's about tuning style. And if you like your tuning style, which you will eventually as long as you keep going and be truthful to yourself and not try to be someone, you will eventually like it no matter what song you're actually covering because you're expressing yourself. And that is literally all about what art is, in my opinion, if not the most important thing in art. Expression. So in the actual process of tuning, it is understandably daunting at first because it's like, what do I start with? Like brightness, dynamics, pitch, like pretentious, what do I do? And regardless if you are overwhelmed or can't come up with any ideas for how you want your tuning to sound like, be inspired by other producers. I'm not saying to copy them, but if you, for example, like the vibrato of a certain song, you can apply that into your own project and see how that turns out. If it doesn't sound like then you are ready to move on. You don't have to make it perfect because after all, you're just starting out, or at least you haven't done many. I'm assuming you all here are like kind of new or have done it a few times but still suck at it and you don't understand what the hell you're doing, and I get it. And there's nothing weird about stealing or copying other producers' styles because that's literally how most, if not all, producers and artists learn. They imitate. But again, obviously don't fucking copy them. Another tip is to use your own voice as a reference. No, you don't have to sing like a professional or loud or anything like that. You can just record your own voice humming to the melody or humming in a way that you want your melody to sound like. And even better is if you have some kind of tool or plugin that can read your pitch. So if you record your voice and then it shows like a graph of how the pitch moves, that's very useful because then you can observe the nuances that unconsciously happen when singing. I would say just study the pitch first. Look into how the pitch is moving throughout time and what happens in different parts of the song. I found that that's the most important part to take care of before you move on to things like dynamics or volume or breathness or whatever the hell. Okay, so that's about tuning style and finding your own style. Now I want to talk a little bit about how I approach my tuning to make her sound the way she does. I'm not going to go too deep into what phonemes to use to make her sound in one way or say something in one way. This is more of just general settings that I use when I'm tuning Miku. So first, I use brightness before dynamics, because it gives a more natural way of singing softer. Because the thing is, dynamics is literally just a volume knob, which is not how the voice of a human sounds like when you talk softer or louder. There's other stuff happening as well, and that's why brightness can kind of imitate that. It makes it more believable and more convincing. And sometimes I even use brightness together with breathiness and air to kind of keep her voice audible and or sounding more fragile. When I'm lazy, I like to use the vibrato presets instead of drawing my own, specifically those that give the most extreme results, because then you won't have any limits to how fast or how extreme your vibrato is. But if you focus on realism, I would highly recommend that you draw your vibratos manually and not rely on vibrato presets, because the vibrato presets, as you can probably notice, they are perfectly round. this is not how a real human vibrato looks like. Just a little side note, some emotion presets won't give you an XY controller where you can go up and down. It will be instead a fader. This is the feature, it's not a bug. So don't cry and scream and pull your hair thinking where the fuck the XY controller is that Electron just showed me a second ago. For the rest of these emotion tools, I don't use like any of them. I used to use the pitch transition presets, but I have abandoned them since I've been using Vocal Shifter for doing those kind of things, for more exact. And I even do it in Vocaloid now instead. But, slight tangent here, but Vocal Shifter is so good, okay? It allows you to draw the pitch much more comfortably than fucking Vocaloid, okay? Because you can see the pitch curve and you can draw on it. It's an older program, if not way older, and you can still like just take that pitch, that little string, that yellow string, you can just bend it however you want. In Vocaloid, you can't do that. You have to go down to a separate window where there's no fucking reference at all except where you are in that window and then how much your pitch sensitivity is, which by the way, you have to remember where it is so that you know how much the maximum and lowest value is in semitones. In Vocal Shifter, you don't have to worry about that shit. You have one curve, one job. Okay, there's no and then it's just So Vocaloid, fuck yourself. But in all seriousness, the thing also I love about Vocal Shifter is that it's way more easier to do vocal fries because all you have to do is just bring it down and then go up again and it will sound like a fry. Very cheap fry, but it's a good starting point. And if you want to make it more, better, I usually go with the EQ setting. You can press up at the top left and you can change the EQ setting, and then you can apply that setting however much you want with this green curve going over the yellow one. So when I do my vocal fries, I have these green curves going at the same time the yellow ones are going down. So you still have to deal with like 2 parameters to achieve one result, like Vocaloid, but you still have way better control and you can actually see both of the parameters at the same time, unlike fucking Vocaloid, where you have to guess. You have to do guessing work. Like, oh wait, I applied my air there, and then I where's my fuck you. Okay, so moving on to global settings of the voice bank. I never touched them. They are all useless. The only useful thing I can imagine is the robot sound, because then that gives you an instant KZ Live Tune style. In all seriousness, I usually never touch them because I think that it's more consistent. By not touching the global controls ever, I will always know how much to apply of each setting and how much each setting is applied already. And speaking of global setting, please, for the love of God, do not use the automatic breath thing. It is shit. I don't care what you say and who uses it. It is complete shit. Okay? It doesn't make Miku breathe. It's not her breathing, okay? If you can't hear that, you're fucking deaf and I can't help you. She's literally stealing some fucking oxygen molecules from a mysterious motherfucking bitch who no one knows what that voice is. Same with the vocal fries presets. They are shit, dude. They don't sound good. You're better off just using Vocal Shifter and or in Vocaloid doing the vocal fry yourself. Like I'm listening to a song, it's like, okay, cool vocals, and then I hear that fucking sex. So please, at least don't use it in your final product. So it just makes me want to kill myself. I, however, when tuning Miku, keep her loyal and resourceful. I don't do any of those presets. I don't even use the breathy phonemes like, because they have an extremely metallic robotic sound quality to them. So I just ditch them as well. Most of the time they never sound good. Most of the time they don't sound good to me. Every now and then I'll play around with it and be like, oh, I wonder how it sounds like. Oh, okay, still shit. I actually recommend doing it manually like this. So you choose a phoneme, you turn the air to max. Now you can control the inhales and exhales using dynamics and change the quality of the breaths with breathiness. So the key to having a realistic inhale and exhale is to actually study the volume curve of the inhales and exhales. And then after that, you can study like the quality, like should it be sharp sounding or should it be very muffled, like how soft, how loud, you know. And yeah, that's the end of the tangent. But before moving on, I just want to mention that over time, I've created my own mix chain for Miku specifically. She will sound different because of how I EQ and compress her. But don't focus on that. Just focus on tuning, because that's the most important part. Mixing only enhances what you already have that is already good. Okay? Now that you have your song in your project and Miku is loaded in nicely and snugly and sitting there and waiting to sing, what you gotta do now is adjust the BPM. I will go over why I'm mentioning this obvious step later. So there are multiple ways of doing this. You can use your DAW to detect tempo. A DAW is Digital Audio Workstation, which basically means a program for making if it doesn't work the way you, oh my god. If it doesn't work the way you want it to, or your DAW doesn't have this feature, which it most likely will, or if you don't even have a DAW, what the fuck are you doing? Get one. I personally recommend FL Studio because I'm biased and it's based. So it's been said to have the best piano roll out there, which is based. A bit more about FL Studio later. Another way of detecting BPM of a song is by using online services. So there are ones that let you tap to the beat while you're listening to the song. Now, the reason I'm mentioning this like obvious step is because some of you have actually experienced that your note length and pitch, mostly your note length I assume, it just doesn't sit correctly in the song. And I believe one of the causes for this is basically just mismatching your project tempo with the song's tempo. You can easily see if it is synced properly if you move your playhead to the later parts of your song. If your metronome is synced properly, then you know you've done a good job. If not, you suck and you need to do it again. And when you have properly synced it, you're ready for the next step. So for doing the covers, I forget to, but I recommend you start with changing the default phoneme in your voice bank to la, or any kind of sound that has a consonant and a vowel at the end, because then you will be able to distinguish the notes much more easier, especially the ones that are adjacent to each other. So you won't have ooh, and then you can't decide how many notes there are there, but if you have a la, you can know how many las there are. When I transcribe, I like to start by just outlining the notes of the vocal melody in MIDI and then record or import them into Vocaloid. Sometimes, or I've started feeling a bit lazy now. Instead of transcribing my own, I just look up if there is one online first, and then if there is, then I credit the source. The most comfortable way for me to write down the MIDI is to use the piano roll in FL Studio, using a plugin like a piano, just a simple sound so you can hear the notes perfectly fine. If you don't have FL Studio, you can get the demo for free. The demo offers you every tool and feature that FL Studio gives you, but with the exception that you can't open saved projects. For that, you have to pay to unlock the full program. But here's the thing though, you don't have to save the whole project. You can actually just save the MIDI as a MIDI file. However, keep in mind that when you save MIDI files, only the notes will be saved in the file. So there's no tempo information or time signature information being saved into the file. As for matching the pitch and length of the melody, just focus on first getting the pitch right. The exact length isn't as important because later on, when you have it in your V-synth, you will adjust the length accordingly anyway. I recommend just writing all the notes to fill every syllable needed, so that when you can easily copy-paste your lyrics, most of the time it won't get cut off or you won't run out of lyrics before. I mean, just look at the video that I'm showing you here. I don't know how to explain it. So yeah, doing it that way, they will be loaded in appropriately most of the time. So to get the pitch right, I just use my ears. I am no expert in music theory. I don't have perfect pitch or anything like that. So throughout time, I've kind of gathered some experience and better guessing where each note is, like even before trying it. But if a song has a lot of harmonies and you find it hard to hear the main melody, just write down the notes that you naturally hum or sing when you listen or sing along to the song. So you don't have to be 100% accurate and at which notes you're actually supposed to copy or transcribe. And in some cases, it can actually sound better for you personally if you go it your way instead of just completely copying whatever the original is doing. Because a little bit of transformative work is completely fine. Transformative meaning that you're changing it up to a point where it's like different than the original. But it's likely they won't be too different from the original because a cover is called a cover for a reason. So if it sounds good to you, then 99% of the time it's good. The other 1% are for those that are completely tone deaf or have egos bigger than their cocks or don't know what scales are. A scale is basically like a template that tells you which notes you're allowed to use in your melody. So if you place one note outside of this scale or template, you will cringe and kill yourself. Music theory is not this limiting. I'm just making an extremely basic, rough description of what a scale is. Yeah, so that's pretty much it for the general tips and tricks for how to tune your Miku, but I'm not done yet. There's a bonus. Yes. So apparently this person has never seen anyone else tune Miku laughing and would like to see how I do it. So let's get to it. So all I really do is try to imitate a basic laugh, like ha 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 ha. I take note of a couple things. So we have the time between fully breathy moments and the tonal ah. So we have the ha and ah, right? And how the pitch moves over time to finally translate them to air, dynamics, and pitch. So I think sometimes breathiness can help a little, but I haven't tuned her laughing that many times to know full confidence if it really does improve her laughing. But the times I have done it, it's usually been like this. So I like to start with the air parameter. The transition between fully breath and tonal is very sharp. I think almost every time, but it depends, right? But mostly, as a rule of thumb, they are very sharp, almost instant actually. And then I move on to dynamics and get the curves right. Now, I haven't looked into references, but I guess a rule of thumb is like to keep the breathy parts a bit quieter than the tonal parts. And lastly, we have the pitch. Now, this is where the fun starts because here you can get creative. Here you can make a decision if you want Miku to sound like Pekora laughing or, you know, like a normal human being laughing. So this is where you make that decision. Now, if you think this laugh is too boring or too easy for you, let me tell you all about our sponsor. the laugh. It's pretty simple. All you really need is extremely short notes with a vowel or few if you're feeling spicy, and just repeat them pretty consistently. And one final thing about this laugh thing is that I've never tried this, but I think you can technically make Miku wheeze, or any voice bank wheeze for that matter, because what I just thought about when I was writing the script was, what if you take one track, make a fully breathy Miku, use a few tracks extra, pitch them high, really high up to the wheeze pitch, you know, how it's all you have like 2 or 3 different fucking pitch going in some direction. So if you manage that, I think you could kind of get a pretty convincing wheeze out of Miku. I'm guessing that you gotta get those pitches close together in terms of pitch interval, and then they move in some direction. Because it sounds very dissonant, right? Dissonant. Speaking of direction, if you want your Miku to move in the right direction in terms of tuning, you can actually send your projects to me. And I will look into them. We'll look into them together and laugh at your horrible tuning. But also, you can tell me exactly what you need help with. So maximum of like 10 seconds of content, basically. You don't have to cut anything or anything. You just let me know in the file that you send me where you want me to look in the project and what you need help with. It's very important that you tell me what you need help with, because otherwise I will ignore it completely. I need to know exactly what you want help with so I can help you most efficiently, and everyone else watching the future video. So yeah, link in the description for more info on that. Also, I just want to thank this fellow being for suggesting this idea. Nobody asked. I didn't even ask. If you found this video helpful for you, great. I still didn't ask. And then we'll all be happy once the tuning is fixed, if I can fix it, that is. But yeah, that's it. See ya in the next video. Have fun. Bye. Tune Miku. Great.